Adilson, how are you?
Doing good, Gary. Good to be here. Good to see you again.
So my guest today is Adilson Borges, who's Chief Learning Officer for Carrefour, which is just a stunningly large organization, over 300,000 employees, and especially want to explore a variety of issues about how to deal with that kind of scale and how to build what we often call a culture of learning in an organization, especially focused on human skills, but is a particularly challenging set of issues when you're a really, really big company. And so Adilson, I first wanted to just ask you, when you've got an organization the size of a Carrefour, and especially you've got a lot of retail locations and a substantial number of people that touch customers and that sort of thing. How do you think about how to what when an organization goes to try to build more and more of a culture of learning? How do you make sure that there's the process within the management of the organization, those who lead within the organization? What helps to convince them to make more of an investment in human skills?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And Gary, I think it's really key for the future of all many organizations and ours in particular. I think basically the first thing that we really need is to create a sort of a culture of being engaged with learning and being also curious and always learning. And for that, we definitely need top management engagement. So we need our CEO, we need our leadership team to really go out and say, look, this is important. Sometimes even showing vulnerability themselves, like look what I learned last week, or look at what I did to improve that particular skill. I think that sort of action actually signals to people that it's okay to be learning always, and it's good for the organization. So top leadership engagement creates and helps to support that sort of culture that it's important to move forward in skills development. The second element that I would point out, Gary, is really to have all your leadership teams around the globe aligned and working closely in terms of vision and strategy, knowing where we wanted to go, what sort of investments we are doing. We have at Carrefour more than 4.5 million hours of training every single year. So it's huge. And so if it's very easy to, in different countries, to start doing things differently and then trying to do, tap into different sort of priorities. So this is why we really spend some time looking together as a team to create that sort of common vision around the purpose of the organization. And then we go ahead and put the efforts on developing those. And maybe the third thing that I wanted to highlight, Gary, other than top management and also the learning and development teams being aligned, the third thing is also for the learning teams, but more from an operational standpoint, make sure that learn is easy in your organization. Don't make things complicated. Just make things simple for people to, if they wanted to learn something, it's like we are, retail is detail, right? And so you have it's very, in the delivery of your training, it needs to be accessible, easy. Don't make 35 different passwords to get into the content. Don't make it hard to enroll a program. Use some nudge techniques to actually make it very, very simple for the person to say, hey, why not learn something new today?
So you mentioned the what I think of as the transparency of not just the top leaders within the organization, but I'm assuming managers throughout the organization. How do you help people? There's going to be some people where that's very natural, and there's going to be many people for whom the vulnerability that needs to come from being somebody that thinks they need to have this sort of old school management, the person in control kind of role, to be able to be transparent and vulnerable with workers and say, hey, there's something I'm passionate about learning, and I want, and to be able to be as visible about that as possible. So do you have to train for that? How do you try to encourage leaders within the organization to practice that so that it ripples throughout, or how do you do that?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you for asking this. I think there are a couple of things that we are doing to help all managers to sort of engage that approach. And probably the most important one, I would say, is and you know that this is something important for me, is spreading out a culture of test and learn. It's making sure that people see, particularly for retailers, we are always trying something different, trying something new, try to put this product instead of this product in the aisle, try to change a little bit the price, see how customer reacts, talk to customers. And I think from that perspective, we bring that relationship that our people have with customers also to our people. And you say, what did you learn new from your team today? What sort of engagement you were having? And that goes throughout all different trainings that we have in our management for our managers when they take their jobs. It's something that is embedded in the training process. So obviously, this is actually that changes in function sometimes of the person, or some people sometimes have a more difficulties addressing that. And there, I think it's when it comes, we are just discussed before, the walk the talk for the leadership. When the leaders stand and say, look, I don't know everything, and I'm always learning. That's a signal for them that's okay to go out and also share with the teams. And so I think that's a process. That's something that we kept always doing. And I think it's fundamental if you really wanted to build a learning organization, right?
So you just pointed to two, I think, very specific or important aspects that I wanted to drill down on. The first is that you're saying is essentially the manager or the executive has to have a mentality around it. People throughout the organization have to have a mentality around test and learn. Yeah. And so you and I have talked a lot about design thinking, and you've got a book on test and learn that's coming out. So help people to understand what that means, and then in a day-to-day example, or in a standard work context, how you would, because there's a bunch of there's a mindset underlying that's around taking risks and making mistakes and that sort of thing. So that may be new, especially for certain cultures of organizations.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that question, Gary. Test and learn is at the same time a culture and a methodology. So what we try to do with our folks, and I'm going to give you a concrete example, is to bring them that sort of culture of curiosity, trying things out, trying to be simple, and see, also engage with the customer through rapid prototyping, which was something that you brought to me as well, and having that conversation, trying to adjust the products as fast as possible, and learning from the process and improving the product itself. Let me bring an example. If you are a store manager and a retailer, grocery store manager, and you are developing, let's say you see in your trade zone, which is the area that your customers come from mostly, and you see that those customers are really looking for a specific product, or you are not selling enough of one particular product category, let's say it, and then you start digging into it and say, why not? I mean, all other stores like mine are selling a bunch of this, and I'm not selling that much. And you start to looking at it, and you try to see, well, maybe the customers didn't see my product, or maybe my product is too expensive for that particular trade zone. So you start asking questions, see the curiosity here, so you kind of dig deeper. And then all of a sudden you say, well, let me try to test something out. If it is because the customers are not aware, so we're going to do a promotion, sales promotion. Let me try a sales promotion, and I'm going to compare my sales with the sales of another store that's not far, and see with that promotion how much of sales improve I can get. And then I get data, which is really important as well, Gary. Test and learn is really also using data and getting out of this sort of I just feel right. I just feel that this decision is right. I just feel that we should go this way. Getting data kind of actually helps you and your team to have a conversation about facts. And that is a learning opportunity for everyone as well that can help you improve. So you did the promotion, and then all of a sudden you learned that the customers learn much more about the product, and you're increasing your sales. All the team actually is learning that, and say, okay, next time for the next product, or for the next action that we're going to be taking in our store, we're going to try to do something new and test something new for this or that reason. And that spirit, that culture shifts completely the attitude and the mindset from all the employees, because all of a sudden, all of them become potential contributors for the organization. They say, I can also help. I can also bring something new. I can also try to suggest something to bring more customers or to make my customers happier and more loyal to my store. And that's, I think, it's the essence of the test and learn, is really making a more collaborative approach to innovation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So now you mentioned rapid prototyping. That's from the work of Tom Chi. So people are interested, go to tomchi.com and you'll see amazing examples of rapid prototyping. But then also a lot of what's underlying some of what you're talking about is that you're helping to encourage processes where people can make mistakes. Does that, especially in your organization, does that require cultural shift, or how do you help people? Does that need to be baked into a set of processes, like the discussions between managers and workers, or how you help teams to be able to collaborate better? How do you actually infuse that throughout the organization? And is it really about helping to encourage them to fail fast?
Yeah, let me insist on that one. Just at the beginning, Gary, you are absolutely right. Without psychology safety, and you can call it many different things, but without psychology safety, there is no test and learn possible. If you really don't have an environment in which people feel safe to try things, and it's not just trying because of the heck of trying, it's really having business hypotheses and trying it out, but justifying. And this is why it's important to have a conversation in your team. So again, psychology safety is really important to create that sort of mindset. How do we do that? Well, I think there's, again, I think there are multiple approaches on it. First of all is we celebrate successes, obviously, but we also celebrate failures, because a failure is actually something that you can learn from. And I know that's, it sometimes is easier said than done, because you have to be very careful in the way you are presenting it, you're doing it. But I think also it's also something that the pandemic actually helped us, because you see, retailers, usually in many business, but retailers particularly, are local business. We really are where the customer is. So we are very decentralized organizations in general. And the pandemic actually gave us an opportunity to share best practices much easier. So if you have a failure in your country, in your particular region, in your store, it's actually an opportunity also to talk in a webinar or in a sort of conference that we could have. We don't have that honestly today, but we could have a sort of I have one friend who told me that they have a fuck up nights. So they have a sort of a meeting in which they come up and say, well, this thing here I did and did not work out well, and we learn from that, and that's what we learn from this. And again, I think if we can create that sort of climate, that helps. And I think it also helps when managers see that when they create that space and the way they are truly they create that they are being brutal honest with their peers, with their teams, they create an opportunity for them to actually participate and then see actually that it has an impact on business, and that engages them and say, well, it's a good way to go, so I should keep doing on it. And I think that's basically what we are doing today.
So when you were talking about psychological safety, I mean, obviously, there's that's tremendously been supported by things like research, like Google's Project Aristotle, and they typically come down to two things: psychology for highly effective teams, psychological safety, and psychological diversity. So this may be my last question for you, just because our time is so short. But how do you think about the processes of the organization, from hiring to the development conversations between managers and workers to the collaboration of teams? How do you think about inclusion and trying to get that psychological diversity, the range of different perspectives and behaviors, so that you can get a variety of different perspectives and have the ability to be able to come up with new solutions and see things that a more homogenous group of people want?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the whole process, the whole HR value creation process needs to be aligned with that strategy. If you are recruiting people that just are like you, or you're having really homogeneous sort of teams, all of a sudden the hypothesis tested phase will be poor, because everybody thinks equal, right? My grandma used to tell me, if two people think exactly the same thing, there is one that's too much there. So you don't need two. I think it's really something that we have to create is this, and the process in HR, I think they're important, is to make sure that you have people that have different views, and it's okay to express them. And then we come back to psychology safety again. And so one of the things that we have a chance here at Carrefour is that we are very diverse in terms of geographies and in terms of different backgrounds of people. Retailers usually reflect, if they do the job well, they reflect the society where they were in, because we are, again, we are local stores, we are in contact, in touch with the customers, and usually the recruitment process support that sort of diversity. And that's important to take a look at. If you are in your store, if you're not having people who actually live in that neighborhood, you actually have a problem, because you won't be serving your customers as well. The other thing that I would say is that you have to keep an eye also in terms of leadership mobility and leadership engagement in general with that question of diversity again, because you mentioned psychology safety are those two things, and so they keeping up oxygen and not being only you alongside you, just working with you. It's really important. In Carrefour, we in terms of learning and development for our leaders, for example, we do have in-house programs, obviously, but we also make sure that we are always doing learning expeditions, that we are bringing people from outside, like we did together. You accept my invitation to come and talk about the future of work to my folks. And this is fundamental, because otherwise, I mean, first of all, we are all fighting more or less the same problems. We all organizations wanted to, build a wonderful shopping experience or customer experience for their customers. We all wanted to have the best employer brand ever to give our employees, to attract the best employees, and to have the a sort of a creative environment for our folks. And so the question is how we are tackling those issues, and we are doing all things differently. And so the fact that I'm talking to you and talking to other organizations on how they are dealing with the digital transformation, for example, I'm always learning from what they are doing as well, and I think they can learn from us. So looking at outside, go to your peers in other organizations, go to your peers in other areas, or do inter-company sort of training programs. Those things are wonderful opportunities to bring oxygen inside, which helps you to actually be, fitting. And that's something that HR processes can help to tackle as well, I believe.
No, I think that's brilliant. I mean, I call that, trying to build the soft walls of the organization to be as permeable as possible, to ensure that you're bringing ideas in and that you're also helping ideas to get out. And so it's brilliant. Adilson, I could talk to you for hours. We always have fascinating conversations. So I do want to encourage viewers to check out your book on Test and Learn. And thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Gary. It's really great to have you. Every time it's wonderful to talk to you. Take care.